Yeah, and I think I don't mind having questions thrown at me while I present, because the direction of the demo is going to go based on people's questions. I'm definitely not covering everything inside DevTools because there's a lot, and there's stuff I've never even seen before. They keep adding more and more every time they do a new release. So I'm going to cover the basics at first, but let's back up a little bit. So by way of introductions, my name is Cameron Barrett. I've been designing and developing websites for over 25 years. I wrote my first HTML in 1993 and never looked back. So I've been using WordPress for about 10 years, 9 or 10 years. And I've definitely involved in the community. I was served on the WordPress Enterprise Growth Council, and I also was lead organizer of Montclair WordCamp 2 years ago, and I speak and attend a lot of WordCamps around the country. I also run a company on the side called SchoolPresser, which designs and develops school district websites inside of WordPress. So that said, let's start with the basics. So when you have a web page or a website, there's a couple things that happen between the browser and the server. So when you enter a URL, a link inside the URL Uniform Resource Locator, and you hit enter, a couple things happen. Is a request is made to the server, and then the server responds with the assets that make up that page. And beyond that, it's pretty simple. It renders PHP, and then the HTML and the CSS are constructed inside the document object model of the web page, and then it's rendered out. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens in between there. It all happens in milliseconds, so it's very quick. But let's say you want to dig a little deeper and you want to find out more. You want to dig deeper. You want to see what's happening with that web page when it's loaded. And the easiest way to do that is to open the what's called the Chrome inspector. The easiest way to do that is anywhere on your screen. If you right click, you can click anywhere. Okay? And if you want to inspect a specific element of the page, you right click on that element. But really anywhere on the page, you right click and inspect. And what that does is it opens up your what's called a DOM inspector. The DOM is the document object model. It's basically a collective term for everything that is loaded inside the browser's viewport. To explain what a viewport is basically everything inside your browser, from top left corner to top right corner to bottom right corner to bottom left corner is your viewport. And your viewport changes sizes based on your browser, right? But when we inspect that DOM, we see a couple of things right away. First of all, it loads all of the HTML inside that inspector. And then when you hover over any of those elements, you'll see that they're highlighted in blue on the actual web page. So if I'm trying to inspect, if I have a problem with this guy's photo right here, something's not loading right, I can click my little inspector over here, the leftmost icon, and I can hover over it until I want to inspect the thing that I'm trying to find, to debug. And it jumps you right to it. There's the image, it's inside an anchor, which is inside a div. And you'll see that all of these FL-module content, all of these, anything prefixed with FL is actually Beaver Builder construct. And so this page was built with Beaver Builder, which is a page builder tool for WordPress. And you can investigate all of these different elements. You can see that they're loading in order. It's quite a few elements here. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, like why there's so many elements. Mostly it's because Beaver Builder needs classes to reference their particular tools. And it does make the DOM heavier, but the added benefit of the Beaver Builder tools is worth it. So let's say we want to inspect an error. So, okay, so first of all, there's your HTML classes. And then there's all the CSS that's attached to that class. You can see here that, let's see, this one here, we can see that it's an image inside the FL photo content class assigned to that image tag, right? And you can see it has a couple pieces of CSS on it. But if I want to actually manipulate that element inside the dev kit, inside the DevTools, I can sit here and I can turn stuff off. I can turn it on. If I'm having a problem with it, I can make it 200%, and it's not taking effect because other things are controlling it. But let's say I want to do max width 100%. And you're making all these edits directly inside the DOM. They're not permanent. If you reload the page, those edits go away. But let's say I want to do, let's make it opacity 0.8, right? You can start seeing how certain things take effect, right? It just lightens it up. It's an opacity declaration on the actual class itself. So this is how you debug your CSS when you're having problems with, something on the page. You just want to debug it. And so there's a couple more things inside the DOM here that you should pay attention to. One is look at the HTML that's output. Start understanding the structure. Look at the classes and IDs that are assigned to each element. Pay attention to how the CSS that correlates to those, what that looks like. And then if you want to actually look at the CSS file, you can do that. You can click on it, and you see that loads over here. I mean, it's minified, so it's one long row. But if we want to go back to our elements and look at a different CSS file that's not minified, you can see here's the actual CSS. And you can actually edit it right in here too. Again, this is all inside the DOM. It's not permanent. So if you make a change here that you like, you can take that CSS and you can override it in Customizer. You can update your style CSS file for your style sheet, wherever you want. Right? Basically, think of it as like a testing mode. You're just debugging stuff as it lays out inside the DOM. Couple more things. So you have your console, which is basically your JavaScript warnings, JavaScript errors, anything that's like considered a warning or an error is thrown in your console here. And we have a couple things here that I'm ignoring. I actually don't know what this one means, uncaught reference error. I have no idea. I'd have to go Google it to figure out why Chrome is complaining about it. It doesn't appear to be affecting the page rendering at all, so I'm ignoring it. These yellow errors are all based on cookies, and this is a common error you see in Chrome because they're starting to crack down on security and cross-domain cookies. It's a warning. You can read more about it if you click on that Chrome status link. But these are generally like Chrome is just saying, hey, Google doesn't recommend this. Think about changing this. And you can go read about it. You can see it's the same error a couple times, 3 times here. And then we have some issues here with, there's a EOT file, which is, it's like a web font kind of file. It's basically something that was baked into the theme that needs to be stripped out. And Chrome is like, I just don't know how to decode this, so I'm gonna throw an error. But it's throwing it 76 times, which, again, this is cleanup that I need to go do for this theme. And here's another one, OTS parsing tags, a very similar kind of thing. I just have to I'm gonna go Google this and find out what that means and then work backwards to remove the warning. So because it's yellow, it's a warning and not an error. If I had errors, there'd be a red stop sign, I think, right here next to it. And maybe I can find a page that has an error. I can show you more, but I want to dig deeper into the tools. So if you click the next tab over, sources, you can see that this particular web page is loading from several different sources. It's loading a Facebook pixel. It's loading stuff from a CDN, which is content.nps. It's loading a WordPress pixel or WP.com. It's loading some stuff from Google. So it's the translation. It's this thing, the translate menu. It's loading stuff from Google Analytics, which is a tag. GStatic is the same thing. And then also it's loading directly from the web server itself. So just about 10 sources. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less. If you're worried about page speed, try to get those number of resources down to as few as possible. And in this case, I don't see anything that we can reduce. This is as few as we're going to get without taking away some of our tracking. And so if you look at the sources that are loaded, you can see here, you can actually drill into it. Here's the index. Here's the index file. Here's all the files that are being loaded from plugins. Here's all the custom CSS file, which is part of the customizer. So this is the chunk of HTML that eventually needs to be moved over to the static CSS file. Right now, it's just in customizer. A little sloppy, but it'll get moved eventually. And all the stuff includes the CSS, JS, and you can also look at the network tab. And you can see here that this page took 36 requests. It transferred 70K, and some of this is cached, so it's actually quite low. But if I hold the shift, if I disable the cache here, I hold the shift key down to force a reload from the server. Basically, holding the shift key down tells the server, no, I don't want you to deliver anything cached, to deliver me fresh copies of the assets from the server. And I reload, you'll see that these numbers jump. So it's 87 HTTP requests. It's about 900K of transferred data and 2.2 megabytes of resources. And it took 1.85 seconds to load. And there's a little more information here. The DOM content loaded is 1.9 seconds, and the load overall is 1.76. Not terrible for considering how heavy this page is and how many assets are on it. It's actually pretty fast. This particular website is on a dedicated managed server at WP Engine. This site gets about 1 to 1.5 million hits a month, I think. I have to go back and look. And it's $600 a month to load for this particular website to host it at WP Engine. WP Engine servers are highly optimized for WordPress, and so if you're working with high traffic sites or heavy sites, like if you're loading lots of data, definitely look into WP Engine. I also recommend Kinsta and Pagely and Pantheon as well. Those are all good WordPress-centric website hosts that are optimized for WordPress. A couple more things. Performance, and by default, there is no performance tracking, but you can reload the button. You click the reload button, and it actually will run a profile. It takes about 10 seconds. And there's all kinds of stuff here to look at. The frames per second, the CPU load. I think net is the combination of those two things. And then you can actually go in here and you can zoom in. Where is it? I think it's like a timeline. So this is basically showing all the elements that are being painted in the viewport, in the DOM, as they're loaded. And these colors correlate to the assets down here. So purple is rendering, yellow is scripting, green is painting. If you're interested, you can go research and go read about how a browser's rendering engine works and how all these things, what all these things mean. But basically, it's the rendering engine processing all the assets and then rendering them inside the page. You can do bottom up, which is basically sort the self time and then the total time, like how they're loaded and then what they are. You can look at the call tree or the event log. These are all just more information if you really want to dig into it. A lot of the stuff I never ever use. It's just kind of there. If you hit Command-Shift-P on the Mac or Control-Shift-P on the Windows, brings up a console, right? So a lot of the stuff is turned off by default. You have to turn it on. So for instance, sensors and animations and coverage are not turned on by default. So if I close sensors, but if I want to open it back up again, I can hit Command-Shift-P and I can find the sensors. I can say show that drawer. And if I reload, I should have some data there, I think. No. Animations, listening for animations. So here, I chose this page to demo because there's animation on this page. It's very subtle, you may not have seen it. But if I reload the page, who spots the animation? You guys see the animation? So these images are set to bounce on page load. Okay, and so you can see in the animation tab, the animation drawer, that we have the animation here, and it renders it out. It's a very simple animation, but if you're doing complicated CSS animations, this is the tab you're going to spend a lot of time in because you're going to want to debug this stuff and test it out. What else can I show you? So coverage is also similar. So the coverage basically says usage visualization, the use of visualization of each asset that's being loaded. Now, let me back up. So an asset basically is anything that requires an HTTP call. So it could be the HTML file itself as an asset, but then every CSS file, every JS file, JavaScript file, every image, every SVG file, every web font, every one of those is an asset that's called from the web server or from a CDN, and it's loaded into the document object model of the page. And you can see here all these different assets. You can see what they are, the types. You can see the total bytes. You can see which ones are big. This particular one is 243 kilobytes. It's quite large. It's the translation API call for Google Translate. This stuff is pretty heavy. Another one here, 203K, is the Facebook SDKJS. I'm not sure what that is. It's some Facebook connector. It's probably being loaded but not used on this page. So if I were to do an asset cleanup, I would try to define what pages of this site actually need that Facebook JavaScript, and I would determine how to disable that JavaScript from loading except for on certain page types. This is a standard page. This is not a custom post type. It's not anything special. So I would pretty much figure out, okay, maybe this Facebook thing's only needed on the home page. So I would only call that JavaScript file on the home page. And so we're starting to get into how do we get our pages faster? How do we get our sites faster? How do we reduce the number of calls to the server? And how do we reduce the amount of assets that are being loaded into the document object model of the page? So Jason answered a question. Between Chrome and Firefox, how different are the tools? You know, they're very similar. I think they borrow from, the two companies borrow a lot from each other. Firefox is slightly different from Chrome. And note that Safari also has its own set of tools that you can turn on. You have to go into preferences and then turn on web developer checkbox, and that gives you the ability to do an inspect in Safari. The tools in Safari aren't as robust as in Chrome or Firefox, but they're good enough. And interestingly enough, Internet Explorer also, or what they call it now, Edge, also has developer tools. I haven't used them in a couple of years, but when I was using them 4 or 5 years ago, they were okay, but they weren't great. I'm sure they've matured a lot since. So let's go look at the network. Let's close this tab. And we can see here, all of my assets being loaded. I can sort by size. I can sort by how fast they loaded. I can see that everything's pretty fast, 400 milliseconds, 300 milliseconds. All that adds up. And then also shows the waterfall of like how they're loaded and what order they're loaded. You can see here what called it. So is it the index file that called those assets, or was it one of these other services like Facebook or Google where we're calling assets from third-party services? You can sort by type. You can see here there's just a document type, which is the page itself. Then there's 3 fonts, couple we actually don't, we're actually not using these anymore, so we got to pull them out. But we definitely are using Gotham. Gotham is this font here. We use actually the standard font for the district here. That's Gotham. So we're rendering that web font here. There's the animation for, I think that's part of Chrome. That's not an asset. But then all these assets are being loaded here. You can examine the headers of a page. So if you're having problems with something like one of these headers is messed up or it's causing problems, you can actually go in and look at how that's working. I have this thing here. It's not working now. Here it is. So I have HTTP header spy installed. Why did that work? Here we go. I can also examine the headers here in this HTTP spy header Chrome extension. And I can look to see that my cache control is set to 600, which is pretty typical. But if I'm having trouble with the server caching stuff wrong, I can set an HTTP header to have a different, like have a max age of 0, which basically would be never deliver a cached version of the header. Let's see what else. Performance. Performance is very similar to the other tab I had open, which was, I forget what it's called, sensors. It shows the order of things loaded, how they're painted. You can actually turn memory, the memory of the page itself, and turn that on and off. You can actually then click the garbage. All this stuff, if you look at that link that I sent you for the Chrome DevTools, the documents go into this stuff much deeper than this very high overview of what I'm showing you. And I'd say of all these tools inside DevKit, I'm probably using 20% of them. There's stuff I just never use. Like I never have any use to go into these tools and do anything. They're there if you need them, but I don't need them. Security, you can see here, yes, it's SSL. You can debug just about anything. Okay, Lighthouse. So Lighthouse is cool because Google recently, for the past couple of years, has been telling people, you got to audit your pages, you got to make them faster, you have to keep them secure, you have to optimize them for mobile. By the way, here's this tool we've built into Chrome DevKit, DevTools, that allows you to generate a report to see how well your website meets our standards. This is Google saying this, right? And so before Lighthouse, all this stuff was baked into like an audit tool that was inside of here. And they've since moved it to this, they've moved all of that stuff to this thing called Lighthouse. So if I click Generate Report, it takes about 10 seconds. Oh, interesting. A little failure there. So it actually shows that my performance sucks, right? 42 is pretty low. When I ran this earlier today, I was at 53. So I think that little hiccup caused that. But if I can reload this, I might have to clear it and have to generate a report again. So these are the tools. Yeah, that's interesting. I've never seen that error before like that. It's the same thing. You can see that I've done a lot of work on accessibility. I've got my accessibility report up to 93. That's mostly because this is a school district and we have to pass WCAG 2.1 standards for accessibility. It kind of fends off the lawsuits for it's a whole conversation in itself. Basically, you want to keep your accessibility high if you're running like a school website or a government website or anything that's where you're a target for lawsuits from people who can't use your website with a screen reader. So we keep that as high as possible. Performance, we have a lot of work to do. You can sit here and you can walk through all of this stuff, right? Or you can go to, there's another one I like to use, GT Metrics is another tool that I like to do also gives you a nice report and idea and gives you solutions to try to resolve those issues. And so you see here I can remove unused CSS. There is actually a tool inside Chrome DevTools that allows you to see what CSS is not being used on that page. Let me see if I can show you that. You can see here that, you know, page speed's not bad, but the Y-slow score is pretty low. And there's definitely a couple things that can be done here. Optimize images, the first one that really needs to be done. For optimizing images, I like to use a site called Compress Ping. So before I upload any files, you know, if I export them from Photoshop, I'll actually process them through this website, JPEG, PNG, PDF, and SVG. And this site basically will just strip out all the unused metadata and extra data that's part of an image file format that the browser doesn't care about. Why should you deliver that data? And I've seen this site take a 300K ping and render it down to 72K. You're saving 60, 70, 80, sometimes 90% of your file size just by processing it through this website. There are some tools that kind of do a similar kind of thing inside WordPress, WP Smush, or what's the other one? Imagify or Image, I can't remember the name of it, Imagify or something like that. They're plugins that kind of do something similar, but I've never seen them come as good as this website. So I just use this constantly, especially for PDFs. I get, you know, 7, 8, 9 megabyte file PDFs that are just huge, and I crunch them down here and I get them down to under a megabyte each before I put them into either into Memphis Docs, which is a WordPress plugin or a WordPress document management tool. It's a plugin, or if I'm loading them directly from the media library inside WordPress. So you can see that our numbers are pretty similar. There's also the page speed tools. Page speed insights. You can also analyze here, and you'll see that all three of these tools give similar kind of ideas for the stuff you can compress and get down. So it's scored 41, it's pretty low. You really want to be up there in the 80s or 90s. So there's actually quite a bit of work to do here, and you can. All of this stuff means something. You can dig through. Sorry, we're getting off tangent here, but all these tools kind of do the same thing. And so we're gonna go back to the Chrome Dev Kit, and we're gonna see here, and it's telling me a lot of the same stuff. You know, remove render blocking JavaScript. You know, reduce your image sizes, compress your JavaScript and CSS. Concatenate them so that 6 JavaScript files load into one, or 8 CSS files load into one. There's a plugin I use a lot called WP it's called Auto Optimize or Auto Optimize, which does exactly that. It'll take all of your CSS files and it'll combine them into one file and then serve that instead of serving, because one HTTP request is a lot faster than like 9 HTTP requests. So it's 9 requests to the server versus 1. It just speeds things up dramatically. So that's Lighthouse. I highly recommend you run some reports, follow the best practices. SEO is already really high because of Yoast, and walk through a lot of these things and just get your sites as fast as possible. So I was going to show you some more CSS. So if I do Command Shift P, and I believe it's called some service. Shift P. Coverage. No, it's not coverage. Oh, I know what I was going to show you next. So one of the best things I've ever come across in Chrome DevTools is the ability to test things in mobile. And so there's this little button here, it looks like an iPhone or a tablet, that allows you to basically set what viewport you want to see. And so this is what the website looks like in an iPhone X in landscape mode at 100%. If I want to test it So this actually eliminates the need to actually have the hardware to do anything, to actually test this stuff on. It sends the right user agent so that it's loading things based, if you're loading things based on user agent, it'll load them properly. If you're loading things based on viewport size, you can also do that. So there's also this responsive mode. Where's that at? There it is. So here's responsive mode, right? What's it look like in these different viewport sizes here? I use these tools every day. If I'm debugging stuff, like I see I've got a little bit of work to do here in the icons in that menu. Like it's not terrible, but realistically, some of these viewports don't exist in the real world. There's no device that has that exact pixel dimension, so you can kind of ignore it. But what you want to do is you want to check against all the major smartphone platforms and their sizes. And Chrome does a pretty good job of keeping this up to date. There's not a whole lot that's not in here. I use this all the time. So what next? Is there any questions?
Yeah, Cameron. Kimmy Way asked, what's the name of the image optimization site that you just mentioned?
Compressping.com.
Compressping.com.
Yeah.
Kimmy, this will be recorded as well, and we'll be sharing.
Yeah.
So you didn't.
So there's.
Oh, he put it in the chat. Perfect.
Yeah. So it's actually, if you go to that website, there are actually 3 different domains, but they're all the same website. So it's compressping.com, compressjpeg.com, and shrinkpdf.com. And there's also an SVG one, but I don't know the domain. But there's little tabs on that site that you can navigate between those 4 sites to optimize your files.
Great, thanks, Cam.
742. I encourage you to read through the DevTools tutorial. Oh, you guys can't see that screen. I put the link in the chat earlier, but it actually walks you through a lot of tutorials. It walks you through how to do stuff. Oh, there's one more thing I was going to show you. I got to look up to where it is though. There's the ability to do geolocation. This is new. I never saw this before. So let me find that link. What's that at? I forget where it is.
Cameron, there's another question when you get a moment. Are there any built-in ADA tools in Inspector? I know there's like services that help with ADA, but is there anything in Inspector that you know of?
I'm sure there is. I don't know where they are. So if I open up the console again, you can see it shows you the accessibility tree, but beyond that, and it shows the ARIA attributes if there are any, but beyond that, it doesn't do any like checking that I'm aware of. There was a speech thing. If you open up this, and then here, and speak the page. I've never used it, but if when I'm doing accessibility testing, I use PowerMapper or I run things against the Wave tool. I use this one a lot. And this is an audit I try to do once a year for every site. You can see here I've already got some errors. So all these icons are missing. Well, it thinks there's a missing link, but they're not there. So there's a little bit of cleanup to do here to add the correct code so that the accessibility tool doesn't have an issue with these. But it's mostly okay. Like there's just a couple things to deal with here. And a lot of these are actually caused by the page builder or somebody forgot to put an alt tag or a title tag on an image, or they have an icon with a link but no text next to the icon. That's an error. So there's a lot of things like that that can be cleaned up. Sometimes it requires a redesign, so you have to just kind of walk through this tool. But I use Wave. I use, there's a WCAG 2.01 as well. I forget the name of it. Well, Power Mapper, but I forgot the name of it. I think that the Wave also will show you both WCAG and Section 508, but I don't recall where it's at. You have to just click through and do some tutorials. They've actually changed this since I last used it in the past month or two. This is a new interface, so they've changed things quite around a bit. Changed things quite a bit. What else? JavaScript errors. You can turn stuff on and off. It's, there's all this. It's very robust. You can debug JavaScript, which I'm not going to do tonight because it's very deep. If you're working with JavaScript on a page, there's a lot of debugging tools for JavaScript in here, but I'm not going to dig into them. If you'd like, you can hire Mike to do that. He's an expert at JavaScript. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. You can change where you want it. I always like my panels to be on the bottom. Some people like them on the right. Some people like them undocked, so they're in a different window completely. So now I gotta find that window and put it back. Oh, too many windows. Back at the bottom. So I encourage you, again, to play with these documents right here. So this is the instructions. So some of the tutorials in here are kind of old. So if we're up to Chrome version 84, some of these are like Chrome 43 and Chrome 56. And so there's, they're old tutorials and they don't match exactly what you see in the interface here. And they've changed and they've moved a lot of stuff. So like the audit stuff has moved to Lighthouse. But there was a geolocation thing. I forget, I wanted to show it to you, but I forgot how to get to it. Where is it? Console, network, storage. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember where it is. It's somewhere in here. Spaces. I don't remember where it is. Yeah, I don't know where it is. It's somewhere in here. Coverage. Yeah, but it basically allows you to set the, like, if you want to like test the page from France or from somewhere else, it'll actually run it through a geolocation. It'll actually set the geolocation differently. That's basically the introduction. I mean, does anybody have any specific questions, like how to do something specific? Bud is asking, couldn't find what SQL, okay. How do you transfer the CSS you're experimenting? So, yeah, so let's say I'm editing this right here. I go back, oh, I forgot to show you the computed. So you have your styles here, and then you have your computed here. It actually shows you the size, the computed size. I see it's being 225 by 250. And so if you need specific sizes of how things are rendering, you can look at your border, your margin, your border, your padding, and your physical size of the element. You can look at your event listeners. If you're doing JavaScript, there's on-click stuff. All this is these are JavaScript calls. Your DOM breakpoints, which are none right now, properties and accessibility. So, but mostly I stick to styles and computed. So if I've edited this element, like really, I don't really want this font to be bold. No, that's a bad example. Because it's on a strong tag. Let's see. Maybe I want the font to be a different color. I can see here that I don't want that color. I want it, blue. And I want to carry that over. Well, when it's on the elements, that's also a bad example. Where's a good example? Stay out of Beaver Builder. So here, I can see here that I have a background color of black and the color of yellow for the text. Let's say I want to change that yellow to like a red. Double click it. And I like the red more than yellow. I can actually take that class, and you see that it's black instead of gray. So black means it's actually this is the class that's being applied. So I'm going to take that code, I'm going to copy it to my clipboard, and then if I'm logged in, which I'm not, we're doing this live, people. So normally I would just go to the CSS file and edit there, but in this case, I'm just going to show you how to do it in Customizer. And I want it, color, we're going to change it to red. Copy. And if I publish that, that should take effect here. I have to reload for it to work. See? I mean, yellow. It's still yellow for hover. The hover pseudo class is still yellow, but the red is default. So that's how you would take your styling that you're overriding. You can override it this way, or you can actually go into the CSS file and update the declaration inside the file. So that's how you do that, bud. Do you have any more questions? With regards to your changes, oh, he's talking about Firefox. No, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a lot here. I highly recommend you go through these tutorials here. If you're a front-end developer working mostly with CSS, and those are your friends right here. It's like, Cameron, how do you do? Yeah.
Did you? I'm sorry if I missed it, but did you show people how you can manipulate the CSS and write some JavaScript within those tools as well, in case you're just testing what a style might look like or what JavaScript might do?
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it right here in styles for your CSS. In the JavaScript, it's, I don't know those tools that well, but I know you can step through issues. I don't know where
in the elements, if you click on the elements and look, you'll see all the styles that are applied to a particular thing, but you can then click on there and override. If you just want to see like where it says red, if you want to see what it looks like as blue, you can just write blue there.
Right.
Before you like go ahead and commit it to your style sheet, like or green. So now that thing's green. But again, now, granted, that will not save. So that's
no, you're only doing this in the DOM. You're doing this in the browser in this state the page is in right now. If you hit reload or navigate away, all those changes go away.
Right. But it's this kind of like a good thing to see.
Saves you. Yeah. This saves you the time of like, going and editing the CSS file, pushing it up to the server, reloading. Oh, that's not right. undo the change. It's like it saves you the time of having to go back to the server over and over again with the edited file, especially with CSS being cached pretty heavily sometimes. You definitely want to use your, what is Dossie saying?
You said unless you turn on the local overrides.
Yeah.
I was just saying, like, yeah, if you're just like playing with it, yeah.
Yeah. The tools are pretty easy. I mean, I ignore the stuff I don't work with. Like I don't do a lot of JavaScript editing, so I don't even touch those tools inside here. But if I'm doing performance audit, or if I'm doing like debugging CSS, or debugging, something's broken, like somebody missed a closing tag in an HTML, like an HTML closing tag, and so things are broken. It's like, yeah, I can debug that. The nice thing, actually true, is like if you view the page source now, most of the browsers now will actually throw a red, actually, I forget, is it red or green? Like if your HTML is broken, you can actually pretty easy to find now. Of course, this HTML is not broken, so I can't show you. But if you're like missing a closing div tag in one of these containers, it'll actually, you can see it right away that there's an error. Most of the browsers are pretty good about showing the imbalance of HTML tags if there is one. Oh, how do you find unused CSS? Yeah, there's a way to do it. I gotta remember how to do it. It's here it is. Actually, let's go back to our tools and look it up. Again, these documents are your friends. So if we're gonna go here and find unused CSS, you can see here, I want to open my coverage panel. So let's do that. So if I go here to coverage, and then it tells me to go reload the screen, and then here, anything in red is unused. So let's look at that. So coverage, clear, reload. Here we go. You see this panel up here. Let's get down to there we go. Well, that's the JavaScript. So we want to do a CSS file. So, where's my CSS? So here. So again, a lot of the CSS is loaded by the main site. So just because this page isn't using CSS doesn't mean that other pages aren't using as well. So you have to kind of keep in mind that if it's like a global CSS, you still need it for other pages, but it does give you some ideas of stuff you can clean up. It basically says if it's a red bar in front of it, it's unused on this page. Like there's nothing calling those CSS classes. You see this particular file is 4,000 lines long. It could be trimmed quite a bit. Even something as simple as removing that last line, there's no reason for that last line to be there. A little sloppy, but it works. What else? Any other questions? No? Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm going to turn this over to Bud for his little announcement.
Great, thanks, Cam. Very good presentation. Next up is Bud. He has I think Bud said he was about a 10-minute presentation, and you have something to share with the group as well. Just before we go over to Bud, just a couple small announcements. We do have a Slack account. I meant to mention this in the beginning of before the presentation started. If you go to, I'll paste it in the chat. If you go to this URL, you can sign up and join our Slack account called Jersey Press. It covers 3 Jersey meetups, including this one, the Montclair meetup, Pam's meetup, which is the Morris County meetup, and Stephen's meetup, which is the Bergen County meetup. All 3 of those members for all 3 of those groups belong to this Slack group. We have regular chats. We have a help desk in there. All sorts of good stuff. So I encourage you to sign up if you want to have continual meetup discussions with people, pretty daily. But yeah, I will hand. I think that was the only announcement we had. So I will hand it over to Bud.
Oh, well, I think we need to announce that WordCamp Montclair was canceled this year.
Yeah, well, that whole big announcement went out. Yeah, but yes, WordCamp Montclair, we had postponed it to October, but have since canceled it due to, not knowing, like basically knowing that it'll be very difficult to have a large event given COVID-19 still being very much an issue. So we're hoping to have our WordCamp in 2021, as long as everything is safe. So yeah, cool. Bud, do you want to start presenting? Go for it. You're on mute.
But not anymore. So I could be heard?
Yes.
And I will share my screen in a second. I just want to say hello to everybody and also to thank Mike, Cameron, and Jason for letting me do this little talk, which won't take very long because I know everybody wants to do something else probably. But Cameron, great talk. It was my idea for you to do this. And I loved it. So thanks for doing that. Time to share a screen, I assume, correct? Let's see. Which one do I press? The share screen. You would think I would know this. Let's get to where I want to go, right over here. So let me just move this out of the way if you don't mind. And I won't be long. So my name is Bud Kraus. I do a lot of website makeovers for small businesses and organizations. I also do a lot of teaching of WordPress, both live and recorded. In fact, on my website, joyofwp.com, you can get over 50 videos, actually, all free. Sometimes you have to sign up for my newsletter, depending on what video you're going to watch. But my newsletter is good. It comes out every Sunday. It's the WordPress Big Three ideas that you could use to make your WordPress site better. Anyway, so what is this? Well, of course, this is the WordPress repository, plugin repository. And we're looking at the place where you can get the Gutenberg plugin. So you're saying, wait a minute, you need a plugin to use Gutenberg? No. As of December 2018, Gutenberg was stitched into WordPress. It's part of WordPress core. It's as much a part of WordPress as creating pages and posts and menus and themes and plugins and all that other stuff. So people keep calling it Gutenberg because that's the name of the project, and it'll probably always be known as Gutenberg as we go forward, and actually take an even more prominent role in how we create web content. So what about the plugin? Since I said you don't need it, if you're interested in seeing what's just over the horizon in terms of what Gutenberg is going to be able to do, you might want to. In fact, you can use the Gutenberg plugin. So a couple words of caution in using it. And I'm going to do some demonstrations. It's experimental. It's not really perfected. It's buggy in some cases. But you will absolutely get to see, hey, what is coming? So when I say what is coming, what I mean is in the next major release of WordPress, which in our case, in this case, it'll be about, I think, the middle of July or so, when WordPress 5.5 comes out, a new version of Gutenberg will be included in 5.5. And just parenthetically, where's all this leading? I'll just tell you real quick that by the end of this year, when we get into WordPress 5.6, something called the full site editor or the full site editing experience, FSE, is going to become part of WordPress. So it's not just creating the content that you see in a page. It will also be using blocks to set up your header, footer, sidebars. In other words, the entire surface of a page will be blockized. It will be Gutenberg. And lots going on right now in the Gutenberg development world, that's for sure. But that's really getting ahead of the story. What I want to really do is stick to what are we likely to be seeing in, let's say, 6 weeks or so. All right, before we can see what we're going to see, let's just take a quick little look. This is this is a site here installed locally on my computer that does not have the Gutenberg plugin. So it does use Gutenberg, but I'm going to just show you something really quick. Now, by the way, I'm visually impaired, so I think a lot of people know that. But in case you don't know, and I start looking really close at the screen, or I zoom in or something like that, you'll say, what's going on here? You know, don't be worried. It's just me figuring out what's going on here. So currently, here we have just your garden variety paragraph and your garden variety image. And I already have a 2-column layout waiting for me. And I just want to show you a little bit the interface. Well, you might be pretty familiar with it, and you know that you can pick up these handlebars and then drag it in over here. And also, you know, if you have a paragraph and you want to just drag and drop it into that column, you know, I don't know why it's a little messed up, but you get the idea. Anyway, it's probably because I should adjust the column width. Anyway, we'll just leave it at that. I just wanted you to see that, take a note of this toolbar over here and the interface. I'm just going to drag it out of here too. Yeah, I'll just leave it over there. Anyway, let's have a look at what's coming. Now, before we do, just want to show you. So you'll see that I'm not playing any tricks. Well, let me just, okay. And if I go over here to the plugins, and you'll see I'm not running any plugins other than the Gutenberg plugin, which was just updated to 8.3. So the other day when I was preparing for this presentation, it was 8.2. So Gutenberg marches on, and this is the way it's developed. You have all these smart people that are developers working together on the Gutenberg project, and they released this plugin for people like me to contact people who are creating it and say, you know, I don't like this. And that's the place, by the way, if you don't like something about Gutenberg, and there are plenty of people who don't, but if you don't like something about where something is going, this is the time to speak up and say, you know, I don't like something. I'll show you what I mean. Let's go back to over here. And there's a lot of changes actually going on in the UI. So I'm going to go over here, and you know, you get familiar with something, and then you see, whoa, things are really changing. Case in point. So look at the inserter now. It looks really different. It used to actually be located on the left side. Now it's over here on the right side. Very different. You might not even be familiar if you're using an older version of WordPress. By default, you'll see the left-hand sidebar over here. And they're trying to get away from that because they're trying to get us ready for the whole full site editing experience. You can still get access to it. And that's just by clicking this little button over here. And, you know, actually, I don't want to do that. It's not true. You can get access to it by, I don't know. We'll just leave it alone. Oh, I know. Just real quick. Yeah. Okay. So if you'd like to have your little sidebar over there, it hasn't gone anywhere. Just go over here, 3 dots to the right. I'm actually starting to get used to this kind of thing. So, all right. So I'm going to show you a 2-column layout in what the future is likely to be. It's going to look a little bit different. So I click on the inserter, and I'm just going to look for columns. I guess we can just look right over here. And this is looking a little bit different than what you had. I didn't show you before, but this definitely looks a little different. You can see that these toolbars look even different. And wow, the column block looks really different. Like, how am I going to work with this? Well, let's give it a try. In fact, I'm just going to go over here to save some time, and I'm going to lift some of the lorem text out of there. Okay, go over here. And so look at this. So this is a very different looking kind of thing, I would say. Even the toolbar over here, they're trying to make it lighter looking, cleaner looking. I think they're going a little too far, quite frankly. That's my editorial. And I want to just stick in a paragraph over here, and I'm going to Command V in my text. I don't know what that was, but let's try to do that again. I didn't get where I wanted to go here, so I'm just going to do. All right. Well, that's as much as I'm going to. I don't know why I didn't get all the text that I was looking for. Very strange. Well, I'll just type in my own text. Okay, we'll save myself some time here. This is my own sort of lorem text, right? And then right over here, actually, I screwed this up. Let me just back out of this, and I just messed this up. So it's not exactly what I wanted to show you. So let's kind of start this whole show over again. It won't take long. Because what I want to show you, let's just clean up the whole. All right, let's get our 2 columns. Okay, and then below that, I'm going to put in a paragraph. Well, see, that's a little bit different. You would expect a paragraph, but already they're showing you, they're adding another column to the column block, which I don't think is, it's a little bit weird, right? You don't really want that. So I am going to cancel out of that, or I'm going to back out of that. And what I'm going to do instead is below the column block. So it's a little bit tricky to navigate through this, right? So I'm going to go over here. I'm not going to click on anything. I'm going to go to right. I'm going to go to yeah, I'm going to go to this is what I want. So I'm going to go to a paragraph here. So this paragraph now is outside of the column block, and that's all I wanted to do, just to add some text. And below that, I'm going to insert an image. Here we go. Now I'm cooking with gas. And I'm going to insert the image. And so that looks a little bit different than what you are seeing right now. So the UI is definitely starting to look very different and working different too. And so I'm going to pick this guy over here. Okay. So now I have text and I'm going to drag and drop. Let's see what happens now. Is it difficult to drag and drop these into the column block? Well, let's see now. Wow. So here you can't quite figure out yet where is the drag and dropper. Okay, just doing the up and down arrows isn't going to get the job done. So I found out that you just have to pick the whole thing up and just drag it in. At least that's the way it works now. I suspect that UI is going to get a little bit better, I hope, before the next release. And then same thing over here. So this was really kind of a different, okay. By the way, one of the things that people don't know about Gutenberg is that they get lost. And this what I'm about to show you is already in the current version, but right down here, you can navigate. These are like breadcrumbs, and you can figure out like where you are in the document. So right out here, I'm outside the document, but if I click on the image, you can see that the image is in the columns block, which is in the column, which is an image. Okay, it's really important. This is irrespective of the plugin that I'm showing you now. Okay, this is the current version of Gutenberg does this. Allows you to navigate so you know what block you're operating on. That's really important. You could also do that. They have this little thing over here, and they've introduced this for the last couple of months too. The same idea where you can see like the structure of your document and where you want to navigate to. You want to be, let's say, in a block or somewhere else, exactly where you want to be. That's really important to know. Okay, so that's one little demonstration that kind of got messed up. So let me show you the next little piece. And I suspect this is really bigger than what I showed you. And that is, let's get out of all this stuff. In fact, the big news will be when 5.5 is released next month, which will have obviously some of these enhancements. Now, personally, one of the reasons why I don't like this is it's really kind of hard to see. It's really kind of hard to figure out what's going on. And I will tell you that, let's say if we're in this block over here, okay, this is the paragraph block. And you want to click on the three dots drop down. Look at this, no icons. They're all stripped out. I told you they're trying to make these things cleaner. And I've already complained to the lead developer. Look, you got to put these icons back in there. They're not little pictures, pretty little pictures for people who are visually impaired. They're really important pieces of information for to help people navigate and understand what they're doing. So maybe they'll listen to me. We'll see. Like I said, this is the time to make those kind of suggestions, and maybe they'll listen. But I want to just take this all out. So let's yank this stuff all out, and we'll do a remove, and we'll do a remove for this. Okay. And we'll do a remove for the shell or for the container. Okay, perfect. Now, here's like what will be the bigger news, okay? Besides my ranting and raving about the interface. And that will be, you click on the inserter, and this is a whole new deal here called patterns. So you're gonna be hearing a lot more about block patterns, and all it is pre-built blocks, reusable blocks, templates, that you will be able to select. Now they're just throwing in a couple. You can see I'm scrolling through these. Let's just pick this one over here and see what happens. So this is kind of nice. So you'll have like a whole set of a pattern, okay, that you can work with if you like to do this. Now, I'm not so sure I like to do it, but I can see where people who really need something quick, you know, and something like the layout is done. So my question is going to be, well, how do you get rid of the inserter now? See? What I just showed you is it's not really smooth and clean. You have to still work at it. I personally would not use the Gutenberg block on a production site. I mean, the Gutenberg editor, sorry, the Gutenberg plugin on a production site, because I think it's just too iffy. And there's a lot of things in this that may not end up in WordPress 5.5. So just hold back on using this on a live site, but absolutely, if you're a developer or you're a theme developer or a plugin developer, you've got to be looking at this. You know, heavy duty users, you know, and people who do the kind of thing that I do, yeah, I need to be looking at it too. Anyway, so what is this? Well, I just chose this particular block pattern, and I can click on any one of these elements. In this case, let's see what I'm clicking on here. I'm going to have to go over here, and I'm going to toggle the toolbar. I'm going to put the toolbar at the top, but I also want to show, see, they're hiding everything now. They're doing that deliberately. So now I can see like where I am. And by the way, if you have any questions, I'm almost done, so you can text those questions in. But again, I need to know where I am at all times in the document. And in this case, I am in a group block, and inside the group block is another group block, and then I am in the cover block. If I want to operate on the cover block, I can just click on that, and you know, I can make my changes over here. And if I click over here, of course, this is going to be text. Notice here's a change that they're making. Currently, it says text size. Okay, now they're calling it typography. Woo, getting fancy. So you still have the same kind of options. Nothing changed over there, but they're starting to make some adjustments. Like, for example, I don't see that caps, what is it, that drop cap thing anymore, yay. But I now see line height. So you're going to be able to change the line height of your text over here, which is much more meaningful than drop caps. Also, what's coming in the future is when you're using a cover block, you'll be able to position this text, not just in the center, in the middle of the block, but you're going to be able to position it upper left, upper right, bottom left, bottom right. That's coming right around the bend. Here's another. So again, you've got your text. If I'm going to show you one other thing too. I'm going to add, let's say I can add. So the idea, of course, of using a block pattern is that you have a starting point. It's just a template, and then you can just make all the adjustments to the template as you see fit. And I just love that idea because it just saves a lot of time. If you want to, I'm going to add this image over here. Let's go over here. And it's a good thing I took this trip around the United States 2 years ago because it gave me a lot of good pictures. So here we go. So I'll take this and maybe make some adjustments over here. Now, one thing you can't yet do, but this is definitely coming around the corner, is what they call image editing. Now, hold on, this isn't Photoshop. What they mean by image editing is that you're going to be able to crop, actually. Cropping is coming in, and some image things like rotating the image. So let's say you took a photo and it came out backwards and you need to straighten it out. You'll be able to do that. Not yet in this Gutenberg plugin, but in a future plugin, very likely you're definitely going to start seeing the image editing tool, as they call it. But like I say, it's not Photoshop. And let me see, I'm looking at my notes. I think that's really, yeah, that's it. So the big thing, the big news is going to be when you see 5.5, you will definitely see the block pattern. And later on this year, or maybe next year, but they're trying for this year to introduce the whole idea of the full site editor, where all elements of a page will be editable, don't eat it, but editable by the Gutenberg block editor. And with that, I'm going to stop. I don't want to spend any more time. Oh, I do want to spend one more time. That's right. I do have an announcement. How do I forget? Oh, before I get to the announcement, I want to just show you something that's kind of interesting. So most people know about this, but check this out. Have you ever seen a plugin rated like this? Huh? Is that a beauty or what? Huh? Usually you see like 5-star ratings. So there's a lot of people that, you know, again, this plugin, it's not a finished product. It's what is coming. It's experimental. It's developmental. You should not think of this as, okay, you know, I should be using this for my sites. No, but you can definitely get a good look at what's coming down the road. All right, the announcement. I think this is where the announcement. Oh, 2 quickies. 1. It's really hard now to stay current with what's going on with Gutenberg, okay, because there's so many things that are happening, but I do suggest the place to go is Gutenberg Times. That's run by a fabulous woman by the name of Birgit Pauli Hawk. She's really well known in the WordPress community, and I'm proud to call her my friend. And I don't know, she has a podcast called the Gutenberg Changelog, which is fabulous. And this website here just keeps track of all things Gutenberg. So that's the Gutenberg Times, which I do pay attention to, and I subscribe to her newsletter and stuff like that. And she always will answer any question about what's going on. I don't think there's anybody that knows, well, I shouldn't say that, but she knows a lot about what's going on with Gutenberg. And then my little announcement is that, I got to pull this down over here so that you can see it. Oh, on my website, joyofwp.com, you can come here and you can see, like, I have all these Gutenberg videos over here. So I updated because it's always changing. So it's really hard to keep this stuff up to date. So on the left-hand side here is like, if you're really new to WordPress and you want to learn everything from A to Z, that's where you're going. And if you want Gutenberg videos, just ad hoc, you're going to go over here. But the announcement. So I'm doing a webinar. Now, some of you have seen this already, so you don't have to come. But those of you who have not seen this, you do have to come. It's on website security for the solopreneur, really for small businesses and organizations. I'm going to give you tips and tricks and information about your website and how to keep it safe and sound from the bad guys. So if you come to this page, you can register. I'm not going to click on your little special surprise. You have to come here, though. I'm not going to show you. So, but you have to, you'd have to, give me your all that stuff and subscribe. And it's June 30th. That's a Tuesday at 1 p.m. because it's a worldwide event. There are people from all over, whatever, Europe. And so I had to make this work for Europe and California and all that stuff. Do you want the URL? And then, are there any, first of all, are there any questions? Let's do that.
If anybody has any questions, you can feel free to put it in the
This is the time. Yeah. Is anybody using the Gutenberg plugin?
I think a lot of us have a love-hate relationship with Gutenberg. It's kind of like,
I know it's not going away. Yeah, I know.
I know, but I like where it's going. But every time I try to use it, it's like the tools aren't ready. It's like when I try to take an existing website and port it to Gutenberg, something's always missing. There's always something missing. Well, and I have to back out.
And there is a plugin that lets you. One of the things I hate about it is that, as you know, when you change from old WordPress to Gutenberg, it puts everything in the classic editor block, right? Which is absolutely useless. You can't edit anything from that. So there is a plugin that will break that all down into individual blocks. It's like the Gutenberg block converter or something like that. So that helps. But you're right. You really can't do all that. There's especially if it's customized. Wow. I just like if you're using like, let's say, I don't know if this, Genesis and you're using all those div classes for different columns, you know, that gets kind of messed up. So, yeah, but as everybody knows, it's not, you know, Gutenberg isn't going to go away, and it's what WordPress is and what it will be. So hopefully it will get better. I was thinking earlier today that when you look back at what it was in December 2018, when it was definitely not ready to be released, it was maybe 6 months too early to be released. It's gotten better. My problem with it is just that the changes are so rapid now, and what's going to come around the corner is so quick. People just aren't going to be ready for this stuff. You know, I just don't, you know, the role of theme developers, on and on. It's really complicated.
The clients aren't ready either. It's like, it's such a big change. If they're trained on how to do something with Beaver Builder or Elementor or even just the classic editor, and then you throw them a Gutenberg site, they are completely lost even after training.
Yes, and I find that Gutenberg, quite frankly, since I do a fair amount of training, when I do it, I always go away saying, God, this is a lot harder than it used to be. And it is. I mean, you couldn't do any with a classic editor. Think about this. We could not even do columns, okay? I mean, just, you know.
Unless you had some messy shortcode in there.
Right, shortcodes and plugins and HTML and CS. I know, I understand that, but it was, you know, even though I sort of still like the classic editor, I get it, and I'm still using it for the site that you're looking at here. You know, I know sooner or later it's, you know, that you know, I know what it's like to convert sites from old HTML, you know, the old classic editor to Gutenberg. It's a stretch. There's a lot of work. So would you like me to text in the URL for this page?
Sure.
Or anything like that? Any
Sure.
questions?
There are a few questions in the Q&A.
Oh, a few brave souls. Okay. All right.
Kimmy asked, Gutenberg capability to edit all elements on a page. How will that affect a pre-Gutenberg template?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know if that's all been worked out. You know, you have to wonder. Yeah, I mean, you know, here's the thing. I've seen now most themes. Okay, of course, themes have templates. Translate fairly well to Gutenberg, but here's the thing: they don't. If they're not retrofitted properly or at all, they won't take advantage of the things that Gutenberg can do. Case in point, like full page images and other kinds of things, you're just not going to get unless the theme has been retrofitted for Gutenberg. But if you take an old theme that's not been retrofitted, and then you're going to put it into a full screen editor, I don't know if anybody can answer that question. I really don't. I know I can't answer it.
I know that WordPress is always keeps backwards compatibility in mind.
Yes,
So
but
I would think that a lot of, like, it would really come down to the theme,
right.
You know, opting in versus, you know, deprecating or like removing something that a theme could always do in the past.
You know, and what I wonder about too is when we get to full screen editing is that what is the role of the theme developer? I mean, since I'm going to be able, as the user, I'm going to be able to just to do anything I want. I could just absolutely obliterate that theme. Right. So why do we even need theme developers?
Well, that question has been raised as
yeah.
well.
Oh, sure it has. I know that. Yeah. I totally understand it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to text in this URL and like I say, you got to come here to find out what is that little thing that he's talking about over here. I'm not giving it away. Where do I text this in? At the should I do it in the chat?
What's that?
The URL.
Yeah, put it in the chat.
Right. Yep, I will do that right now.
Right.
Is this chat?
Another question: how would you convert from Elementor to Gutenberg blocks?
I don't know if I would.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah, I would stay away from that kind of thing. And personally, I like Elementor, but it's not for me. I just don't want anything extra. You know what I mean? Elementor's got a lot of, you know, takes the resources and it's heavy and it's what, you know, I don't think I would change.
I think that if you're building a site with Gutenberg and it has a lot of a lot of legacy to it, like there's a lot of content,
Right.
you got a heavy lift. You have a very
Right.
heavy lift getting
do.
that content into Gutenberg. You have to rebuild every page. There's some shortcuts you can do to make it go faster, but you really have to touch every single page by hand. Rebuilding, reformatting, it's a really heavy lift and very expensive.
Yeah.
If you're working with a brand new client, brand new website,
Right,
brand new
right, right.
content, Gutenberg makes a lot more sense. So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, if you're starting brand new, that's where I want to go. Now, what am I looking for? The chat. What happened to chat? I just see Q&A.
It's right next to the share screen.
Uh-huh. I don't see it next to share screen. I see Q&A. I don't see chat.
Oh, maybe it's located in a different spot.
Well, let's see. I'm gonna put it in the Q&A.
You can also always post it on later on.
Yeah,
on
I'm gonna put it in the queue. Right, I'm gonna do that. You know, that's what I'm gonna do. I will, through the meetup email, I'm gonna put it in there, if that's okay with you guys. Actually, it's really simple. Just go to joyofwp.com, and you're gonna see this on just about every page. I couldn't even get rid of it for this page, and that's how you can get access to this if you're interested in figuring out or finding out about, you know, keeping your site safe and secure.
Yeah, you can, like I said, you can post it
Okay.
as a comment in the meetup. You
Yeah,
can also post it on
I'll do
Slack
that.
in
Okay,
general.
will do. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Any other questions? I'm not ready to, is there anything else about Gutenberg, which is always an interesting subject? No? Now, don't be shy.
well, Kimmy is asking, if you're starting brand new with Gutenberg, what would you use to start with before 5.5 comes out?
Well, don't use, I would not, unless you're, you know, you don't want to use the Gutenberg plugin for a live site because, like I said, it's, you know, more of on the experimental side. I would just use WordPress, which is, you know, is Gutenberg's part of, and I would look for, you know, here, I'll give you another change that's coming, okay? And
I think it's also important to make clear, in case people don't understand, that Gutenberg exists as a plugin, but the plugin portion of it is like what is eventually going to go into core WordPress.
Yeah,
So
but not necessarily all of it, though. I mean, you know, it doesn't always, it's, I mean, you're right. That's the purpose of the Gutenberg plugin, is to give the public a look at what's coming in a future version of WordPress.
Right, but for production site, you shouldn't use that plugin.
Absolutely
it's
not.
more
Yeah,
like, you know, if you want to see what is coming, like maybe in a staging or a development environment or test environment.
I'm gonna say it again. Over the past year, I've tried to build websites with Gutenberg, and every single time, every 2 months or 3 months, I hit a dead end, and I'm like, nope, not ready yet, and I back out.
Huh.
I don't know when Gutenberg is going to be ready to build robust.
What is? I'm just curious. What is the thing that causes you to back out? What do you see? Give me like a for example.
Specifically, there was an issue with the Genesis custom. How was it? There's a Genesis widget called recent posts or something like that, or it allows you to like define what posts you want to be rendered in a block. Like and when StudioPress ported that theme to Gutenberg, that functionality was stripped out. I'm like, well, that doesn't help me. That I can't move my client from the old version of Magazine Pro to the new version of Magazine Pro because they took functionality away.
Right.
And it's, you know, even just the other day, I was working on a site with Joe. Joe's on the call today, and I hit a roadblock right away with Gutenberg, and I'm like, this is crazy. Back out.
Don't they move functionality to plugins sometimes? I know that I've seen that happen where they.
Well, I asked David Vogelvold. I asked the guy at WP Engine, David V, who runs the Gutenberg group, and I said, dude, what happened to this functionality? He goes, oh, it's coming, it's coming. I'm like, well, why did you port the theme and not port 100% of the functionality of the theme? It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I just don't think Gutenberg is ready. It's getting there.
They're
like
pushing
it.
Genesis Pro now, which I'm not 100%
Right.
sure.
Well, that's a business issue. You paid for your lifetime of Genesis. Well, guess what? Genesis Pro is different. Now you got to pay again. That's just a business decision. But, it's like, I just don't think Gutenberg, if you're building a brand new site from scratch, I think you can do a pretty good job with Gutenberg. But if you have an existing client with 5 years of content, all that content stuck in, the WP post table, and there's no easy way to get that content into Gutenberg blocks without a manual transfer, that's
Well,
really
you
expensive.
could have a site that has both Gutenberg and a classic editor.
Yeah, I have that now.
Yeah. So it's not 100% Gutenberg, but
right. But then your client gets super confused because they don't know which one to use.
Well, tell them not to look.
I've got sites with 2 different page builders, Gutenberg and the classic editor installed.
Right.
And depending on what page you're editing, you have to know which one to click, which one to use.
Yeah. I know. I get it. I know. Yeah.
Like I said, I like Gutenberg. I like the direction it's going. I still think we're about 12 months away from it being mature, where you can do real full site editing.
Right.
In the sense of like Wix or Squarespace.
Yeah.
But
I think you're right. Yeah. I think even saying that full site editing will be here in 6 months is pushing it in terms of what the public needs are. I just can't believe it's going to be here in 6 months. They'll push it out on, they'll put it out there, but it won't be ready for. And like I said before, Gutenberg itself is really, they're just, in my opinion, they're just bloating this thing up. I mean, why do you need to put everything imaginable into Gutenberg? I wish they would just like put nothing into Gutenberg and let people just download the blocks that they're going to need, and that's it. And I think that's where it's going to come too, because they're talking about, as I'm sure a lot of people here know, about the Gutenberg block directory, so that you'll be able to have instant access to just the blocks that you need. I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but we'll see. Okay. Anything else?
Cool. No, I think that's it.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's getting hard to keep on. It's very hard to keep on top of what's going on, but you do the best you can.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you showing us a bit of what's coming down the pike in Gutenberg, bud.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for sharing that URL, and feel free to share it in the meetup that we on the meetup page and in our Slack. Just so everybody is aware, we are running meetups twice a month. Our next meetup will be just a WordPress hangout. It's more open-ended. It's not a presentation, but you can stop sharing your screen now too.
I'm trying to. Why? A free commercial time. Come on now.
Yeah.
Is that it? Are we good? Did we stop?
So wait. So there was. So I forgot. I was supposed to show how to solve a mixed content issue over SSL. Who's interested in seeing me solve one of those problems?
Go.
You think I should show it? I know Joe wants me to fix this site. Yeah, so let's do that. So I'm going to take over sharing. And in this case, I'm going to use Firefox because, hold on. Let me get the right browser open. Okay, let me share my screen. So you guys can see this. So sometimes this is in Firefox. It's actually easier to debug in Firefox than it is in Chrome. So in this case, what we see here is we have an SSL cert but it's saying, basically Firefox is complaining that, hey, you're not 100% secure here. It says parts of this page are not secure, such as images. So we're going to click through and we're going to go into more information. And I'm going to go into, and we're going to media. And we're going to see here, we're going to look at all these media assets here. And we're going to try to find the one that has, that doesn't have an HTTPS on it. It's that top one right there. It's this logo BG overlay to free image. And that's this image right here. It's a background image, see it? So now that we know that, you guys can see that pop-up window or no? Mike, can you see the pop-up window? The page info?
No, I do not see a pop-up window. I just see Lee Carpenter.
Okay, so that none of that made any sense to you. So let me show my whole screen. Okay, now you see my whole, all of my entire computer, right? So if I see what we have here is we have this error here. Parts of this page are not secure, such as images. We're going to click through. And we're going to look at the media section here. This is a lot easier to do in Firefox than in Chrome. And we can see here right at the top, this very first image is being loaded over HTTP rather than HTTPS. So we have to go into the page builder tool and figure out why that happened. And so we're going to log in. Hopefully I have it saved. I probably do. Joe, did you change the login? I just, Joe, you broke it. What'd you do? I've never seen that before. All right, so I can't really show you. But basically, you would go into the page builder. Oh, he changed it. Okay. Come on. Okay. Wait for Elementor to load. It's pretty heavy, but we know that it's somewhere in that. Somewhere in this box. It's in this box right here, I believe. Yeah, see the background image there? So we're going to click on the three dots, and we're going to click on it. Edit the section. We're going to go over here, and we're going to go to Style. And you can see here that there's background overlay set here. It's this image here that's being rendered non-secure. So all we're going to want to do is just delete that and then re-add it. I believe it's that one right there. What that does is it kind of resets, just resets the reference. I'm going to update. And it didn't fix it. So we need to go find, we need to find the reference of where that image is. It's probably on this one. There. Oh, Joe said I didn't update. Thought I did. Yeah. Nope. Still broken. So basically, we're just going to dig through these panels until we find where the image is being referenced incorrectly, and update it. So I believe it's this background overlay. It's not there. Could be here. But anyway, the point is, I wanted to show how do you examine what's insecure, and then how do you fix it. I would have to dig around for 10 or 15 minutes to find where in Elementor that image is being rendered. It's either one of these background settings, I don't know which one, or it could be a global setting. I just don't know where it is. I didn't build the site, so I'm not sure. But somewhere there's been a reference to an HTTP image as opposed to an HTTPS. And once you've corrected that, then this error should go away. If you have more than one, you just walk through it until you find the one that's, until they all say HTTPS. Okay, actually, I'm not seeing it now. I'm seeing all of them. Anyway, but that's basically how do you solve a mixed content SSL error. So any questions on that? Good. Okay, thanks everybody. Mike, do you want to sign off?
Sure, yeah, before we end, I just want to say that we have been doing meetups twice a month. Next, in 2 weeks, we'll have a WordPress Hangout. It's a different format than this. This is our presentation format. The other one is open to everybody to, show their video, talk, and, usually we see who attends, and conversation just kind of presents itself, and we discuss whatever people that are attending want to talk about WordPress-wise. In 2 weeks after that, so a month from now, we will have another presentation. We do not have a presenter as of yet, so I'm just throwing it out there. If anybody wants to present something, WordPress or WordPress peripheral, please message either myself, Cameron, Jason, hit us up on Slack, hit us up on Meetup, wherever you want, wherever you feel most comfortable contacting us, and let us know what your ideas, and or if you just have an idea that you might want to discuss and try to flesh out a little bit, we're open to that as well. So yeah, if you have any ideas and you want to present, please let us know. We're always looking for new talks. That pretty much concludes today's presentation. I want to thank Cameron and Bud for both presenting today. And again, we have that link in there if you want to join our Slack. Just click on that link, add your email, and it'll add you into our Slack group for Jersey Press. And we can keep these conversations going pretty much daily if you want. So thanks again, everybody, and have a great night. Thanks.